Jung discovered that nearly 73% of his most dangerous patients revealed a single, identical warning sign before they became destructive. This psychological red flag was not loud or obvious, but subtle, concealed beneath an exterior of charm, warmth, and apparent harmlessness. Jung insisted that once you recognized it, the only true safeguard was immediate withdrawal. What he meant is this: the danger does not appear in the form of open aggression or overt toxicity. Instead, it hides in a much quieter, far more deceptive phenomenon. Desire, Jung observed, emerges when a person begins projecting their shadow onto others with unwavering conviction. Most people, however, fail to understand what this actually means. Shadow projection is not merely an abstract psychological theory. It is a living warning system that can determine whether your relationships remain intact or collapse into ruin. In 1913, Jung encountered a patient who permanently altered his comprehension of human danger. This individual was captivating, articulate, and seemed to radiate genuine concern for others. Yet Jung noticed something that chilled him to the bone. Every person this patient described as corrupt, manipulative, or deceitful shared the exact same set of traits Jung immediately recognized as belonging to the patient's own disowned, unacknowledged self. This man was not simply misjudging people. He was systematically projecting his denied qualities, his shadow, onto everyone around him. And within 6 months, the damage was catastrophic. 3 relationships shattered, 2 colleagues dismissed from their jobs, and his own brother reduced to a nervous breakdown. Through it all, the patient maintained a mask of innocence, convinced beyond doubt that he was the true victim. It became clear to Jung that this was not ordinary misunderstanding. He was witnessing one of the most dangerous mechanisms in all of human psychology: unconscious shadow projection, fused with absolute certainty. Yet the most disturbing part would only be revealed decades later by modern neuroscience. Studies by Dr. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford demonstrated that when a person projects with conviction, the brain does not simply misinterpret, it actively rewrites reality. During these episodes, the same neural pathways ignite as those observed in states of delusion. The projector is not consciously lying. Rather, their brain has been hijacked, altering perception itself. This is why they seem so convincing to others. Their conviction is not performed, it is neurologically real. What follows is even more dangerous. The intensity of their certainty generates what psychologists call a reality distortion field. The projector doesn't just misperceive you, they pull others into their distorted vision, persuading entire groups to see you through their warped perspective. Jung documented countless cases where such projections obliterated reputations, corroded relationships, and destabilized whole communities, all because the projector spread their unconscious narrative with unshakable belief. Consider the last time someone accused you of motives you never had, emotions you never felt, or intentions that never crossed your mind. If they did so with a kind of absolute certainty, impervious to any clarification you offered, you were face to face with shadow projection. And here lies the sinister feedback loop. The more fiercely the shadow is projected, the more convinced the projector becomes of its truth. The cycle feeds upon itself, capturing not only individuals, but entire families, workplaces, and even societies. Long before Jung gave this process scientific framework, ancient wisdom traditions warned of it. They understood that the unacknowledged darkness within a person, when unleashed upon others, could unravel lives with a quiet but devastating force. Buddhism speaks of the darkened mirror that reflects one's inner stains as if they were foreign intrusions. Christianity warns against noticing the speck in another's eye while being blind to the beam lodged in one's own. Yet Jung pushed even deeper. He discovered that shadow projectors are not merely misperceiving reality. They are generating alternate realities, worlds of perception that feel absolutely genuine to themselves and, over time, begin to feel just as real to those around them. The true warning sign emerges when you sense a profound split between the way someone describes you and what you actually experience within. They assign to you thoughts, motives, and emotions that exist nowhere in your conscious awareness, and they do it with such unwavering certainty that you begin to question the solidity of your own reality. This is psychological gaslighting at its most insidious, less an act of deliberate deceit than an unconscious distortion of reality so potent it can drive its target into genuine psychological collapse. That the projection itself is not the deepest danger. The greater peril lies in how these shadow projectors unconsciously enlist others into their distorted worldview. Jung referred to this phenomenon as collective possession. When entire groups begin perceiving reality through the lens of one person's projections. Leon Festinger's research on cognitive dissonance helps explain the mechanism. When a projector declares their perception with unshakable conviction, others feel an inner pressure to align their own perceptions with that certainty rather than trust the uncomfortable contradiction of their own direct observations. This is how families can turn against the scapegoated member. How organizations can unite to ostracize an innocent employee. How whole communities can destroy individuals based on accusations that rest entirely on projected fantasies. The projector becomes the silent axis of a psychological storm, unconsciously marshalling others into attacking the very traits they refuse to face within themselves. Jung observed this pattern most clearly in his most dangerous patients. These individuals did not merely cast off their shadows onto others, they constructed whole social systems, orbiting around their projections. The projected upon person becomes isolated, gaslit, and eventually crushed beneath a collective delusion they never had any part in creating. Jung identified 5 unmistakable warning signs that reveal when shadow projection has reached this dangerous level. The first sign is absolute certainty about another's inner motives. They do not say, "I think you might be," but rather, "You are," with total conviction about your inner states, drives, and character. The second sign is complete immunity to contradiction. No amount of clarification, explanation, or factual evidence can dislodge their perception. Any attempt to correct their misreading is taken instead as confirmation of its truth. The third sign is emotional intensity wildly disproportionate to the evidence at hand. They respond with volcanic feelings to supposed slights or behaviors that others scarcely notice, or that never occurred at all. Their intensity does not reveal your actual behavior, but the repressed content they have hurled upward. The fourth sign is the unbroken thread of victimhood. Wherever they go, they inevitably appear as the innocent sufferer of others' cruelty, malice, or manipulation. The cast of characters may change, but the script remains the same. They are always the one who has been wronged. The fifth sign is recruitment behavior. Subtly or openly, they attempt to persuade others to perceive you as they do, often through conversations framed as concern about your character or conduct. When all 5 signs appear together, you are no longer dealing with mere miscommunication or ordinary conflict of personalities. You are confronting unconscious shadow projection, a process that escalates relentlessly until it destroys something: your reputation, your connections, or even your sanity. Shadow projection follows a consistent and predictable sequence, one Jung traced over decades of clinical observation. Stage 1. Initial projection. The process begins with subtle accusations or attributions that do not correspond to your reality. You dismiss them at first as simple misunderstandings. Stage 2. Conviction crystallization. The projections become more frequent, more insistent, and more rigid. The projector displays complete certainty about their perceptions, immune to your attempts at clarification. Stage 3. Reality distortion. At this stage, the projector filters everything you do through the lens of their projection. Neutral gestures are recast as proof of hidden malice or ill intent. Stage 4. Social recruitment. They begin voicing their concerns about you to others, always disguised as worrying or care. Stage 5. Collective possession. Those around you begin to adopt the projector's distorted view. You suddenly find yourself defending against accusations that seem to materialize from nowhere. Stage 6. Systematic exclusion. The group unites around the shared projection, gradually organizing to marginalize, exclude, or attack you for qualities that exist largely within the projector's own unconscious. Recognizing this pattern can spare you years of psychological harm. The essential safeguard is to identify the process by stage 2 and remove yourself before the projection gathers collective force. Yet shadow projection was not the only peril Jung identified. He uncovered an even more dangerous psychological condition: ego inflation. While shadow projectors act unconsciously, inflated individuals operate with deliberate conviction in their own righteousness, while remaining completely blind to their shadow. The inflated person does not merely project their darkness, they fuse their identity with archetypal energies that far exceed their personal capacity to hold or integrate. They become overtaken by figures such as the savior, the wise sage, the bearer of ultimate truth, or the righteous judge. Unlike overt narcissists, who are often recognizable, inflated individuals can appear spiritually advanced, morally elevated, or intellectually enlightened. This appearance of higher stature makes them far more perilous, for others submit willingly to their authority. The warning markers of dangerous inflation are unmistakable. First, the inability to doubt their own motives. Where authentic spiritual teachers show humility before mystery, inflated individuals radiate total certainty in their judgments, treating dissent not as information, but as opposition to truth, goodness, or even divine will itself. Second, they combine extraordinary charisma with rigid mental structures. Their unyielding conviction creates a magnetic pull, while their inflated state erases all psychological flexibility. Jung warned that individuals caught in inflation eventually collapse under the unbearable tension of equating their small, limited ego with vast transpersonal forces. Yet before this inevitable breakdown, they often inflict profound harm on others through their unwavering conviction in their own moral certainty. The third perilous sign Jung identified is full identification with the social persona, the public mask becoming the only self the person acknowledges. This creates what Jung termed the perfect person problem, someone so molded by collective expectations that all contact with their authentic core and their shadow has been severed. The risk here is subtle, because those identified with persona often appear to be paragons of social excellence. They always know the proper words, the acceptable gestures, the correct expressions. But this flawless exterior conceals a chilling hollowness. When every ounce of psychic energy is devoted to sustaining an immaculate public image, the disowned shadow does not vanish, it gathers beneath the surface, building pressure like steam in a sealed vessel. The warning signals are recognizable: an uncanny social polish, the absence of off days or human flaws, interactions that feel technically correct yet strangely hollow, as though performed. And whenever their perfect mask is threatened, they react with extreme defensiveness, far out of proportion to the situation. Jung recorded how such persona-bound individuals often suffer abrupt shadow eruptions, explosive outbursts where all the repressed material breaks loose in destructive floods. The more immaculate the persona, the more catastrophic the shadows return. Perhaps the most alarming danger Jung described is archetypal possession, when the individual's personal identity dissolves, and they become a mouthpiece for vast, transpersonal energies beyond their capacity to integrate. In this condition, it seems as though something impersonal and ancient has taken hold. Their eyes shift, their voice changes, and they speak with an authority that does not stem from lived experience. They may embody the eternal victim, perpetually wounded and demanding rescue, or the righteous warrior locked in cosmic battle against invisible evil, or the divine parent treating grown adults like helpless children, needing guidance and control. What makes archetypal possession so perilous is the extraordinary certainty it brings. Ambiguity vanishes, doubt evaporates. They radiate an absolute conviction that others often find compelling. But archetypes always contain polarities. The very energy that produces saints also breeds zealots. The one possessed by the savior archetype will inevitably manifest its darker counterpart, often becoming precisely what they claim to resist. Jung described cases where possessed individuals committed acts directly opposed to their conscious ideals, later explaining them away with elaborate rationalizations or lapses of memory. The final warning sign is what Jung called the compulsion to repeat unconscious patterns in which a person relentlessly recreates the same painful situations, convinced they are victims of merciless fate. This may appear less destructive than the other signs, yet those trapped in repetition compulsions draw others into their unresolved dramas, enlisting unsuspecting people to play roles in their unconscious theater of suffering. The warning emerges when you notice someone repeatedly finding themselves in the same painful situations, only with different people each encounter following an eerily familiar script. They appear genuinely shocked every time the cycle returns, as though they are victims of fate rather than unconscious creators of their own recurring drama. The real danger is becoming enlisted in their psychological theater. Without realizing it, you can end up cast in a role that was written long before you met them, most often the betrayer, the abandoner, or the persecutor. Jung referred to this phenomenon as negative synchronicity, the unconscious talent for arranging encounters that sustain unresolved patterns. Those caught in repetition compulsions send out subtle signals that magnetize exactly the kind of people who will help them restage their original wound. Now that you can recognize these warning signs, the question becomes, how do you safeguard yourself? Jung's protection strategy is deceptively simple: conscious awareness coupled with uncompromising boundaries. Step 1. Trust your instincts. If someone's interpretation of you persistently clashes with your inner sense of yourself, Privilege your lived reality over their projections. Step 2. Don't argue. Inflated egos, shadow projectors, and archetypally possessed individuals are impervious to contrary evidence. The more you try to persuade, the more their projections harden. Step 3. Restrict disclosure. Avoid offering personal information that can be twisted into proof of their distorted viewpoint. Step 4. Keep records. Document conversations and interactions. Such personalities often rewrite history to reinforce their narrative. Step 5. Seek outside mirrors. Consult trusted people who know both you and the projector. Test your perceptions with those beyond the projection field. Step 6. Withdraw when necessary. Sometimes the wisest choice is to step away. If multiple danger signs appear, strategic retreat may be your only safeguard. Remember the patient who reshaped Jung's understanding of psychological danger, the one who ruined relationships while maintaining an aura of innocence. Jung eventually saw that this man's shadow projections weren't random outbursts. They were systematic defenses designed to avoid facing his own capacity for the very flaws he condemned. He could not endure the realization that he was capable of cruelty, selfishness, and manipulation, so his unconscious pushed these qualities outward onto everyone around him, allowing him to preserve a sense of purity while secretly enacting the behaviors he despised. This is the tragic paradox of projection. People become the very thing they most dread or loathe, all while remaining oblivious to their own transformation. Here is Jung's liberating insight. Conscious recognition dissolves the spell. The moment you can identify projection, inflation, persona identification, archetypal possession, and repetition compulsion, their unconscious grip on you begins to fade. The gravest danger comes from those who remain utterly blind to their own darkness, fortified by total certainty in their perceptions. Yet when you awaken to these dynamics in others and in yourself, you step outside their psychological jurisdiction. Jung devoted his life to charting these perilous regions of the psyche, not to spread fear, but to offer freedom. Freedom from unconscious manipulation, freedom from entanglement in projection fields, freedom from being drafted into another person's unresolved drama. The most dangerous sign in Jungian psychology isn't simply projection, it is the complete unconsciousness of one's own shadow, combined with absolute confidence in one's viewpoint. When you encounter someone embodying this sign, recall Jung's sobering words: the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Those who cannot embrace their own wholeness will inevitably deposit their unwanted qualities onto you. Your defense is not to wrestle with their projections, but to remain steadily aware of what is truly yours and what belongs to them. That awareness is the shield against the most destructive psychological forces within human relationships. Have you noticed these warning signs in your own connections? Share your reflections in the comments. Sometimes recognizing these patterns in the past is the key to protecting your future. And don't forget to subscribe for more explorations of Jung's psychology, insights that can transform how you navigate human dynamics. If you're ready for deeper strategies around power, projection, and motivation, check out my other videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next dimension.